Hey everyone, welcome to Princess of Gay. I'm your host Connie, and today we are here with episode 3 of Castlevania Nocturne. So last time we've already lost someone. We lost a member of the party who basically just joined, and yeah, that's never a good sign. He mostly just fell behind while everyone else got away, and let's be honest, it was all Annette's fault. She was the one who gave away their position and got them chased in the first place. And mind you, we understand why. We understand her desire for revenge and everything, but she let it consume her, and it cost them. So the rest of them managed to get away, but it's a big loss nonetheless. And as we see at the end of the last episode, it looked like he was being turned into a night creature, which is fascinating. He's definitely going to come back into play then, and he's going to definitely attack them, which is, going to be upsetting. The question I'm wondering is he going to be transformed enough for them to not recognize him? Meanwhile, we're still leading up to this vampire messiah whose name I forgot. They mentioned the name. And we know that Jolta, who I thirst over, is the guard dog. So we need to find out more about this vampire messiah. We know that even prior to becoming a vampire, she was pretty insane and terrible and evil. Jolta's her guard dog, yada yada. And Maria's mother has history with the Messiah, so lots of things getting set up here. Obviously, Richter is still facing his inner demons, his past, and one of them is around. We know that. Also, there was something I didn't notice before. I was watching a reaction to the first episode, and it was pointed out that the abbot, I think is the right term. I would have said the priest, but I don't think that's technically the correct term. I think it's abbot. But he was at the chateau. The scene where they were throwing the dead bodies in that pile, he was one of the hooded figures there, and I just somehow completely missed that. Because in the second episode, I was pointing out how it's seeming pretty clear that this guy is a bad guy. The way this is opening and everything, the things he's saying here. And at the end of the first episode, it actually confirmed that. The first episode actually confirmed that for us. The second episode, his little speech there was meant to, just hammer that in. Not try to confirm it. So it's I completely had missed that. And that can happen. Just as a warning for everyone watching this, who might be new to the channel and all, I'm not perfect, I'm not flawless. I'm a reactor, and sometimes we miss things. It happens. We're actively reacting, and sometimes when we're talking, we might miss something. That's why there's a lot of reactors who pause it when they talk. Or at least when they go off on a notable tangent. I try not to do that as much as I can. I only do that if I really know I'm going to miss something if I don't. So I try not to do that if I can, because I want to keep the reaction going, But yeah, I did miss that one thing. I don't know if it was because I was talking, though. I don't remember. I'd have to go back and look at the reaction. I don't know if it was because I was talking or if I just missed it. Because I could be paying attention and watching and still miss something. It happens. But it is something I missed. So, there you go. And the second episode, I was way too focused on Drolta, but I think I got everything in the second episode. I just don't remember names because I suck with that. The only reason I remember Drolta's name is because I thirst over her. Um, let's be honest here. But I'll get names down. I'm sure. I'm kind of wondering how how season specific is this series going to go with? Because season or series, the first series, the first Netflix Castlevania series had an ongoing story throughout all the seasons. And while each season kind of had, like, in a way, certain parts of its own thing going on, they did all bleed into each other, pun intended. Um, I'm wondering if this is going to be the same, or if this is going to be more like a Legend of Korra situation, where it's like, oh, each season is kind of its own separated thing. Um, I don't know. This Vampire Messiah is being built up so much, I don't think she's going to be beaten in this season. Um, but we could still have a villain come in who is stronger than her and who is a worse villain than her. She's just the main villain for now. The same thing happened in the original series with Dracula. He was the main villain at the start, but he was replaced in the end by Carmilla. And then I guess technically by death, but that kind of was a big surprise twist at the end. Um, but yeah, Carmilla became the new main villain, and it kind of changed the overall vibes of this show, and not in a bad way, in a very good way, by the way. It was a really good decision to change things up there. And I'm wondering if they're going to do similar here. If we're going to start with the Messiah as the main villain, but then change things up partway through the run of this series. I don't know how many seasons this is going to be. But if we're going to change things up and kind of go in a different direction at some point, I would be okay with that. I would be completely fine with that. I'm just curious if it's going to happen. It depends. We have other enemies to take on still, too. We have Drolta, we have the sexy dude from the beginning who killed Richter's mom. I can't think of his name at the moment either. But we have options. We have we have other villains to go through, so we'll be good. Let's just get this going, though, and see what this episode gives us. Will we get more Drolta? Will we get more info about the Messiah? Will we actually get to see the Messiah? Let's find out. When the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So I'm going to get the smaller stuff out of the way first so I can really delve into the more important, bigger moments from this episode. But let's start with the smaller shit. I know they're doing this on purpose now. Listen. The scene showing Drolta laying there with, like, her hip poking out of her skirt and everything, and just the seductive ass pose while she's talking to Battery, who we get to see for the first time, by the way. like really actually see, not like just a silhouetted form. Um, they're doing this on purpose. Like, they purposefully made this character fucking sexy as hell. They made her irresistible on purpose. They wanted us to thirst over her, and god damn it, it's working. Like, oh my god. Like, why? Listen, I understand the first series did this kind of thing too. I understand that there were many characters in the first series, and I talked about this last time, I believe. But there were many characters in the first series that were very sexy. There was a lot of sexiness. And she's not even the only sexy character in this season. I mean, you have the likes of Olrox, who is just unquestionably sexy. But Drolta is just such on another level because she's not just sexy. Like, she's sensual. She's designed and written in a way that she is actively showcased to be sensual. The posing there was not just random. It wasn't just this thing that happened. No, they did that on purpose, obviously. Which means that they have been actively attempting to draw her to be this enticing. And that's not fair. That's not fair. I don't want to go into this every episode just losing my mind and getting this turned on every time I see her. It's like, it just cuts to a shot with her, and it's just like, my mind gets cloudy. Like, there's other characters in other shows and stuff and games and yada 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 that do this to me too, to a degree. But Jesus fuck. Like, Jesus fuck. And it's like, I know she's evil. I know, like it's a toxic attraction and everything. But I mean, I can't help if a character is drawn and designed in a way that is just extremely attractive to me. I can't help if I am just extremely turned on by a character's everything. Their design, their mannerisms, the just everything. The voice to an extent. Just the way she carries herself. And it's and I don't want to just like make every thumbnail about her either. Like, I'm probably I make for those who don't know, I make the thumbnails usually like right before I start getting stuff uploaded. I record stuff earlier in the day, and then later in the day I make the thumbnails and then start uploading. Right, that's all at the same time. I haven't made the thumbnail yet. I'm probably gonna have to make it like Annette, which would make sense still. Like, a lot for this episode. Because I can't just make it Jolta every time. I can't. Like, I can't do that. Because if I just make it Jolta every time, it's like, I'm just gonna be, like, even more of a horny bitch than I already am. I need to differentiate the thumbnails to some degree, you know? I need to have some variety here. And I want to showcase the other characters as well. And like for this episode, Annette is the perfect choice because this episode was so focused on her. So it's like I want to just make sure that I'm clear about this. I am not okay with them doing this to me. With them giving me this character that is just such a massive turn on to me. But also I don't want them to stop. Uh, I am beyond help sometimes. Um, Other stuff happened in this episode though. Olrox came to visit the abbot, I guess, or at least find out more information. He confronts Mizrak and asks him why the abbot is making night creatures for the vampire messiah. Doesn't really entirely get a real answer, but is it just me, or was he kind of flirting with Mizrak a little bit? Like especially like by the end with that line and everything. Like, why don't we take this to somewhere more comfortable? It's like, listen, maybe it's just because he's hot as well, and maybe with everything else happening in this episode, like my mind was a little cloudy, but it very much came across to me that he was like kind of flirty with him. And I mean, I had no issue, but I'm just wondering if anyone else thought of that, or if I'm just like looking too deep into it. I don't know. Obviously, if anything is confirmed or denied or whatever in the future, don't tell me. But that's just kind of the vibes I got from it. But maybe Olrox is just like that. That's always possible too. We haven't seen a lot of him so far in these 3 episodes. And honestly, this interaction was different than his interaction with Richter's mom and whatnot, so. And Richter himself. But yeah. I don't know, we'll see. The main meat of this episode, though, was centered around Annette. Following Edouard's death, she tells the backstory of how she met him and like was growing up as a slave in Saint-Domingue, and how when escaping from her master, that's when she met him and everything. It's a really heavy story that actually got me really pissed. To just put it simply, I got pissed. And to see that Val Blanc also escaped irritates me. Although I think we knew that because I think he's in the current day. Yeah, I believe he's in the current day, so we kind of knew that. Because was he the one that she saw? He might have been the one that she saw. I don't remember. Little details like that. Anyway, but we see like their entire history and everything. We even get a little hint at Edouard having a partner prior to leaving. And now we also get to see kind of the conclusion to this, as at the end when the night creatures attack, we see Edouard is still there and still kind of has his mind to him. At least to some degree. He recognizes Annette and tries to hide himself when she sees his eyes. But then when one of the other night creatures is about to attack her, he protects her by attacking the other night creature. A different night creature sees it, it's like, the fuck? And just snatches him up and takes him away. Because it's like, that's not supposed to happen. Somehow Edouard has kept his, at least to a degree, his humanity. And again, he recognized and protected her. So I'm wondering, if he ends up surviving, could he end up becoming like a ally again as a night creature? Because that would be fascinating, having a night creature on our side. That would be a really fascinating turn of events. I feel like either that's going to happen or he's going to be killed again. It's one of the two, I feel. If he's killed again, can he be revived as a night creature a second time? I don't remember if they did that in the first series. I genuinely don't. But yeah, this backstory and everything giving us a lot of look into the depths of Annette as a character, and to a lesser extent Edouard, but also showing how their relationship started. We get a lot more understanding of why Annette did what she did back at the chateau. And while Richter is wrong, and it definitely is her fault for what happened, at least to a degree, we understand why she did what she did, and we don't really blame her. Like, it's partially her fault, but she's also not to blame, if that makes any sense. She is a trauma baby. And my protective instincts for her have definitely shot up. Again, for anyone who is new to the channel or is like watching just this series, it's kind of a thing on this channel where it's like when there's a character who's like heavily traumatized and is kind of going through it like that, I get very attached to them. Because of having gone through traumas myself. And I tend to, like, gain this, like, protective instinct over them, even though I know they're just fictional characters and everything. But it's like I get, like, attached to them to a degree to where it's like if anything happens to them, I get really upset. And I use the term trauma baby to refer to them. Because it's like I see them as like someone who through their trauma has never really had the chance to properly process a lot of things, properly live in a lot of ways. And I'm not saying like they're immature or anything, but they're a character who needs to be shown love, attention, and a desire for protection from other people in their lives. One such big example I can give you, and kind of the series that I think I started using the term for, is Chris Yukine from Symphogear. I believe Chris is actually the character I started using that term for, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, with the shit that she's gone through, and I'm only like partway through season 2 right now, with where I'm currently at. We will be returning to that after we finish off season 1 of Kid Cosmic. But yeah, Chris so far is definitely like kind of the big character for that for me. And so it's begun to bleed into a lot of other shows where I get this kind of, again, protective instinct over characters like this. And Annette has definitely reached that level for me. She is definitely, with this episode, with her backstory, her mother's murder in front of her, which, again, Richter can definitely connect to. But also all the other shit she's gone through, and now Edouard's death. Edouard was like her best friend, but also like family. Like, it wasn't even a romantic thing. It was just they were that close, just otherwise. And so his death was not just horrific for her, but horrifically upsetting. It's literal trauma. You see her crafting his face out of sand, out of like a lack of ability to let go, basically. That is literal trauma. That is a trauma response. That is really upsetting, and definitely elevated Annette to trauma baby status for me. And if anything happens to her, I will be fucking upset. She better survive this. I'd be more okay with seeing Maria die. As harsh and terrible as that sounds, it's like I'm not as connected with Maria. I like Maria, don't get me wrong. I think she's absolutely fucking adorable. But I am not as well connected with her. This episode just like connected me very strongly with Annette's character and made me just really feel for her. Honestly, more so than pretty much any other character in this series right now. Not counting the original. I'm just talking about Nocturne. I think she's the one I'm connected to the most right now. Richter probably the second, but let's be honest, he actually hasn't had as much screen time as you would think. Like, the screen time's been split pretty evenly. And he has that trauma to him, and I definitely feel for him and everything, but it's just not as notable to me as with Annette's here. But yeah. So this episode put me through quite a range of emotions. Like I was saying at the end of the reaction. Like I actually got very teary-eyed for a bit there. But I also was extremely horny because of Trolta. I was very angry at points because of the slavery shit. Like I went through it this episode. Like, oh my god. It was just like very emotionally draining. And I mean that in a very good way. This was a great episode. Like this, they really did well. And I want to make another thing clear. It's like I don't know if I've said this like much in the first two reactions, if at all, but this is very different in terms of tone, style, etc. than the first series. Not just because Richter is different from Trevor and whatnot. It's not because of things like that. It's just overall, it has a very different feeling, a very different vibe, very different presentation even than the original series. They really wanted to make sure that Nocturne felt like its own thing. They didn't want it to just feel like another season of the first show. They wanted it to feel like it was separate, but also still part of the same universe, part of the same timeline. And I think it's a massive success in that regard. I think that it really does. It feels like it does take place all of this time into the future from where we left off with the first series. But at the same time, it's so different in how it's presented that it feels fresh. Like, even just different little animation things they do, which you saw a few examples of in this episode, with, like, Val Blanc and stuff. It's like, oh my god, you do not need to go that hard and that stylistic. It helps it stand apart in a very beautiful way. There is almost an artistic sense to this series compared to the original. And I guess maybe with the time period that makes a little more sense, but I don't know. It's just very interesting. Um, and I really enjoyed this, and I'm excited to see more. I believe season two for this has already been confirmed, but there's not like any dates or anything. It's more than likely coming out next year. Just who knows when at this point. With Netflix, you can never tell. But I am definitely going to not rush my way through these 8 episodes because I want to just soak this in. I want to enjoy this for as long as I can. I'm not going to like delay it constantly or anything, but I want to enjoy this series and really take it in. So, that all being said, tell me your thoughts in the comments below. What did you think of this episode of Castlevania Nocturne? Let me know, and thank you so much for tuning in. For now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.